Hi, and welcome to Using the Force of Your Network, a webinar of the American Bar Association and sponsored by the Law Student Division and Young Lawyers Division. Our panelists today are Nicole Abboud, Irene Mo, and Miguel Willis. I am Franklin Graves, your moderator for the day. I am in-house counsel for a global music company in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm currently serving a 3-year term as a Young Lawyer Fellow with the American Bar Association's section of Intellectual Property Law. I earned my JD from Belmont University College of Law in Nashville, Tennessee. Nicole Abboud is the founder of Abboud Media, a modern video marketing agency for lawyers by lawyers. She is an attorney and the host of the Gen Y Lawyer podcast, which is a show dedicated to showcasing the Gen Y lawyers who are taking a chance on themselves and practicing law on their own terms. You can find out more about Nicole and Abboud Media in the links we'll share in just a little bit.
Hi.
Irene Mo. Hey, Nicole.
Just thought I'd say hi.
Irene Mo. Thank you. Irene Mo is an innovation assistant at Legal R&D, the Center for Legal Services Innovation, and a student at the Jeffrey Feiger Trial Practice Institute. I apologize, I didn't practice that ahead of time, Irene, so I hope I said that correctly. She spent the
Yeah, you're
summer,
good.
Great. She spent the last summer at the Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society at Harvard University. After graduating from Michigan State University College of Law in May 2017, she hopes to litigate in information privacy and security law. You can follow her on Twitter or connect with her on LinkedIn. Again, we'll have those links in just a little bit. Miguel Willis is a third-year law student at Seattle University School of Law and founder of the ATJ Tech Fellows Program. The National Jurist recognized him as Law Student of the Year in 2016 for his work organizing the Social Justice Hackathon and other innovative community initiatives. As you can see on the screen, we highly encourage your interaction throughout this webinar. You can use the chat functions here in the program if you're watching live on GoToWebinar, or you can tweet us with a hashtag and we'll catch it and answer or respond on the program. So let's dive right in. Let's start at the beginning and discuss some of the basics for establishing and growing your network online. So this question is for all the panelists. What is your favorite social network and why? So Nicole, go ahead and kick us off.
Sure. So at the moment, and it does change every so often, but right now my favorite is Instagram. And it's because I feel like it has everything. It's all in one. It has pictures. You can write comments that are longer than just 140 characters. It has searchability, which is really important. And of course, it has the Instagram stories and direct messages. So I feel like it's just one amazing communication tool all in one.
Excellent. And Miguel, what about you?
Twitter, definitely Twitter. I love the succinctness of Twitter, the brevity, 140 tweets. Sometimes I get annoyed with Facebook because people write these long, brief rants. And I just think it's a perfect balance of personableness and professionalness within Twitter.
Great, and also Facebook can sometimes have news updates from your grandma or your uncle that you don't really care about. So, thanks. And Irene,
I still love
My
Facebook.
favorite is also Twitter. I would say that that has been my best networking tool as a law student. It just really helps you connect with people and build personal relationships with people that you might not see frequently or halfway around the country. So for everything Miguel said, I also love Twitter for those reasons.
great. And Miguel, I think you were about to say something else about Facebook. You still like it, but what?
I still love Facebook, and it's just kind of very personal. And then LinkedIn is on the other end of the spectrum, where it's just kind of just very professional, and you get shunned out for posting any type of personal aspect of your life.
You get shunned. That's pretty funny.
I love it. Yeah, so LinkedIn is actually my favorite. That's what I put first, and I would second Twitter for sure. But I put together this slide, and I don't know if all of the panelists agree with me on this or not. But this is how I kind of rank the social networks, and going with the theme of May the Fourth be with you. These are not the accounts you're looking for. So required, I would say LinkedIn. Recommended, because not everybody likes Twitter or blogging. Those are recommended. And then optional are Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So panelists, what do you think?
I would agree with that ranking, I guess, but I would say that if you need one or the other, either Twitter or a blog, especially as a young law student trying to show that you have substantive knowledge in a certain legal area, or that you are actually interested in talking to people and getting to know people other than just, coming out there and meeting people only to get a job.
Definitely. And so, Irene, I want to follow up with you on a question. Since you mentioned Twitter, can you share one or two tips for utilizing that social network specifically to build and expand your professional network?
So for me, before I attend a conference, I try to look up the different sessions I'm interested in attending and seeing if those speakers have Twitter handles. And if so, I will write it down either on the notebook I plan to bring or just have it on my phone what their Twitter handles are, so that while they're talking on the panel, I can sort of live tweet what they're saying. And some of them might have their phones with them on the panel, or they might look at it afterwards, but they'll usually say, like, hey, thanks for tweeting about it. And then from there, I make sure to go up and introduce myself in person, and that sort of solidifies the personal relationship, so that when I go home and, whoever the panelist is might be in California or they might be in New York, but they remember that, I'm the student who was at the panel, who was actively listening, who was tweeting out all these quotes that they were saying. And when I continue talking to them on Twitter or responding to the stuff they post online, it just continues building on that personal relationship.
Great. And Miguel, what about you? Can you share one or two tips for utilizing a social network to build and expand your professional network?
Definitely. I think one tip would be to just engage. Everything doesn't have to be a retweet. Follow up with people when they post articles. Bloggers, and writers like to see that you are, reading their material, and not only reading it, but engaging with them with questions. I would say another kind of pro tip would be create a list, so you can curate your followers and contacts. That way, you can see a codified stream of information. I codify legal tech in a list, access to justice tech in a list, law schools. So if you have all these codified lists, you can get direct information from that specific source.
That's a great tip. That's something I need to implement, because the curation side of Twitter can get overwhelming if you're just going based on the chronological feed that is the thing that most people look at. So I like that idea of having lists and creating that, and calling back your followers into specific categories so you can follow and get updates based on those categories as you wish. Nicole, can you wrap us up there on the one or two tips for utilizing a social network to build and expand your professional network?
Sure. So I think just going back to what you have on the screen right here in terms of just required, recommended, optional, just from looking at this from a macro level view, I'm a fan of testing out the various social media platforms and then sticking to the one that you actually really enjoy. So I don't know about these requirements, just be on the one that you actually really enjoy, you really like. And I think in terms of actually networking on whatever platform you decide to be on, it's important to just keep the context of that platform in mind. So respect the context. So Facebook, for example, you're right, it is a little bit more personal. It has groups, which is awesome, because the groups on Facebook are a gold mine for just meeting people, making connections, and getting information. So knowing that that's what Facebook is good for, that's what you should be looking for on Facebook. For Twitter, like Miguel mentioned, it's important to engage with people. So tweeting, if you read an article, tweet it out, but also tag the author, tag a bunch of other people that you want reading that article, and get that conversation going. So just know how each platform works individually, because they're all different, and respect the platform.
Great, yes. And Nicole, you and I have actually talked before about this next slide, which is SEO yourself. So it's important on specifically LinkedIn to include bullet points, keywords, or industry-specific key terms that can kind of help your profile show up in search engine. So SEO means search engine optimization. We don't have time. That could be an entire course, multiple presentations in and of itself. But what I do want to talk about is my first job offer came from LinkedIn. I was a 3L, or actually I was studying for the bar exam, and it was in June. Actually, it was in July, because during the bar exam, I decided I was not going to look for a job, put that on hold, the job search. But then a recruiter messaged me on LinkedIn because they found me using some of the keywords that I had included on my LinkedIn profile. And long story short, went through a round of interviews, ended up getting a job offer with a nationwide company to do e-discovery work. And it was like the step above management for the connection between law firms and the e-discovery side this company services they offered. So that to me is a very good story to kind of explain why it's so important to include a very fleshed out LinkedIn profile. And as you can see on the screen, I kind of highlighted the banner at the top, your little tag headline is where you can put a lot of those words. And Nicole, I think you're the first one to tell me this. That is actually included in the search results and SEO optimization for your profile, as well as the bullet points down below. And so you can see down there I highlighted the importance of making sure you flesh out and include the bullet points for your profile. Do any of our panelists have any additional comments about LinkedIn, or have you received any job offers or internship offers because of your profile?
I would say mostly headhunters are on LinkedIn, and I get job hits and people requesting, trying to follow up with more information, but they seem more in the headhunter context and not these authentic relationships that you can build, through networking via Twitter.
Excellent. Oh yeah, so speaking of Twitter, I want to show this next slide too. I went ahead and pulled out a screenshot of each of our panelist profiles, and as you can see on the screen, they have great usage of the hashtags and keywords and everything in their descriptions, kind of explaining what they do and making it so their profiles would get caught by the algorithm of Twitter and recommending them to be followed by people that might be searching for or interested in these topics. So yeah, any of the panelists have anything else to add?
I would say that when the connections that I build on Twitter haven't, led to a straight job offer, but it has led to relationships where people will offer to help me or offer to connect me to people, and it's not necessarily that they know people are even in the field of law that I want to practice, but just because of the relationship that I built with them online through Twitter, they can sort of get a sense of my personality and how I am in person, and they want to help me based off of that.
Yeah, and I personally have made a lot of friends online. So I met a lot of fellow lawyers online, and we actually became such close friends that we eventually met in person, either at conferences or we purposely decided to meet up. And they are some of my biggest supporters and vice versa. And Irene's right, these are the people who will help you whenever you do need help. So if you are looking for a job, if you're looking to transition or need an internship, the friends you make online are going to be your friends in person as well. So yeah, SEO is definitely important. Using the right words on your profile is important, but I think how you're humanizing yourself and meeting people on these platforms is way more important than using the right word in your profile, I suppose.
Excellent. So next, let's kind of move on, and we've kind of hinted at this a little bit already, but let's talk about how to handle the fine line between personal and professional social media usage. One of my pet peeves personally is when someone has a private Twitter account, but they've put it on their resume or LinkedIn profile, expecting using that as like a way to go and find out more about them, but then you can't. And in my opinion, it raises more questions than anything. So Miguel, how do you handle keeping a professional public account on your social media platforms while also maintaining that element of individualism?
I think it's just the level of authenticness. I mean, it is your Twitter account. I know a lot of people, caption these tweets are my own, but you have to be professional, but you also have to be real. If there's something if you feel a certain way, you want to tweet about it and speak on a certain issue, it's your platform to do so. I always kind of use, you know, in I'm thinking contrast class, or we have the laugh test. So if it's just you know, if it's something very outrageous, I will caution, you know, from tweeting that. But definitely, you have to have a right level and balance of personal tweets, because people want to know you, and then, you know, your professional tweets, sharing articles and content related to the law, or personally just networking.
Irene, can you continue on with that kind of discussion from a law student perspective as well? What are your thoughts on having a professional, personal Twitter account or social media account?
I've always had just one account because, you know, employees are really savvy now, and even if you do have a private account where you are like changing your name or whatever, they can find it if they really want to. And I never want to give the appearance of being deceitful or somehow give the impression that I'm a different person, you know, at work than I am in the professional, or I mean at home. And, you know, my boss is actually listening to this webinar right now, and he knows that I'm a very outspoken and opinionated person, and I wouldn't want to, you know, go into the workplace and have them think any differently. And I think being a woman of color walking into a room, there are a lot of assumptions made about me, you know, as soon as just based off the way I look. So why not just tell people what I think and what I believe in, and talk about the causes I'm really passionate about, you know, rather than just having them make all these assumptions about me. So, you know, I echo Miguel, as long as it's not very extreme and, you know, off the wall, talk about the causes you're passionate about, because that's who you are as a person. That speaks to, you know, who you are as a professional as well.
Excellent. Yeah, that's great advice. And hello to Irene's boss. Thank you for joining and listening and watching in. Nicole, what are you kind of went towards this earlier, this kind of discussion that I want to kind of go down now is what are some of the differences between the content you share on LinkedIn versus what you would share on Twitter, and then also versus what you would share on Instagram?
So yeah, you're right. It is something I mentioned earlier. So it's just knowing the purpose of each platform. So LinkedIn does tend to be a little bit more professional. I understand that, although it doesn't need to be too professional. But I like to share just articles that I've read. They don't necessarily have to relate to the law. It could just be a leadership article, a health and fitness article, something that I enjoyed, and then I post it, but then I also I try to pose a question along with it and get people talking. On Instagram, it's a little bit more personal. It's more behind the scenes of just things that I'm doing, places that I'm going. So I just try to treat each platform the way it's supposed to. But with all of them, and this kind of echoes what Irene and Miguel said, I just try to be myself, which is personal, right? I think that at the end of the day, people want to do business with other people. They want to meet other people. They don't want to look at a profile and see a robot. So don't be afraid to show your personality. If I see that you run every morning with your dog, that's going to make me want to talk to you some more, like even more if I have a dog and I run as well, right? But if I see that you've won 100 cases, that might not mean much to me, right? I want to connect with someone that I enjoy talking to. So be yourself. Obviously, don't go overboard, and we all know where that line is. Don't be so unprofessional and posting pictures of your drunken weekend, for example, right? But if you enjoy drinking a glass of wine, post that. That's okay. Again, maybe not LinkedIn. Think of what platform you want to post that on.
Yes, definitely. And one of the things that comes to mind is when I look at resumes, I'm actually reviewing quite a few resumes because that's a service the Law Student Division of the American Bar Association offers. Hint, hint, law students listening. But when I look at resumes, I love to see that extra line down at the bottom that is typically referred to as hobbies and interest, and then it has like just a 1 or 2 sentence little ditty about that person, and that is kind of what we're talking about here. It's kind of a way to give a different view to yourself, because we all have jobs, we all are professionals, but we also have personal lives, and we have interest outside of the law, and I think it's perfectly fine to express those interests and to share that, because you never know what might resonate with somebody reviewing you, following you, or interviewing you for a potential law firm position or in-house position or whatever job you might be trying to obtain. So now let's transition over to talking about ways you can find your voice and establishing your professional brand. Irene, I know you love it when I bring this email up, so I'm going to embarrass you again. For those of you that haven't heard the story already, my first interactions with Irene came from an email listserv within the ABA's section of intellectual property law. Irene was emailing with the Women in IP group, and someone asked her, quote, where and what are you looking for as your first job out of law school? And then followed up with another line that said, ladies and gents, let's help Irene land her first job. She is a rising star. So I love the fact that Irene was a part of this Women in IP group and active as a law student. So that speaks volume by itself. But then also here on the screen, you can see Irene's response. And so I just want to dissect this really quickly. The first part, where she answers the question, what her dream job is. But then she also is realistic, as most law students should be, that you want a job. You want your first job out of law school, and you might not have the freedom or flexibility to choose what that is. But the way that she phrases this is a way that it's a position that can help me develop skills to get me there. That's so powerful and so strong, in my opinion, and I love this response. And then she also goes on to describe location, but then also being open to location, and that it's hard to strike a balance between coming across as indecisive and not having your mind made up, but this is a perfect answer, in my opinion, to the question. And then she also describes her geographic location for the bar exam, which is also important. So Irene, can you describe more about your process of deciding on an area of law to focus on within and building your brand around that?
Sure. So I'm actually going to, talk about Nicole's podcast a little bit. So when I was a first-year student, I was referred to Nicole's podcast, the Jedi Moderator podcast. And, every speaker on there I kept hearing was the first person to do this, the first person to do this. And, time and time again, all these speakers said their one piece of advice is that there's always going to be someone who's going to be the first to do something. And if it's not going to be you, it's going to be someone else. So I sort of just decided that, maybe not a lot of students or any students graduating from Michigan State College of Law practice in information privacy and security law. So why not make myself that first person? Because it's going to be someone else. So why not make that me? So since then, I've really just dedicated myself to learning as much as I can about this area through my Twitter connections, through reading, through blogging a bit, and I've really developed a passion in this area, which has helped me, continue forward and drive towards my dream job. And I don't know if I can announce this, but it's paid off where I've gotten a position practicing in my dream area, which I don't know if I can talk about yet, but it's
well, we heard it here first, so congratulations.
Thanks.
That's exciting. So good to hear that, and I think that's a true testament to show that the advice we're sharing and everything that we've followed ourselves as people guiding other law students and young lawyers in this area, it does pay off, and there are rewards for following these simple tips. So Miguel, you have also worked hard throughout law school to establish yourself. Can you give us an overview of the brand you developed and some of the steps that you took to find it?
Yeah, I think it was just putting myself out there and not being afraid to fail or look, be taken unseriously as a law student. I attend a lot of conferences around access to justice and technology or legal technology conferences, and I'm frank. Hey, I'm a law student. I'm really interested in this. I'm really interested, kind of following up with what Irene said in terms of kind of scoping out people's profiles before you go to a legal conference. These are the things that you need to do just so you can move beyond breaking ice, because when you're networking, when you're establishing your brand, at least in person at different events, you only have a limited time with someone, so you really want to make these conversations meaningful, and also have a really multi approach to brand. Online, we kind of just discussed the social media aspect and the online presence, but having, being out there in your community, helping folks, being active in law school, just an all-around approach, being a good law student, being someone that you're looked up to in the community, and also giving back to the next generation of lawyers who will come after you. So I think it involves a combination of different things to establish your brand. But one of my professors told me that, if you're not, every day you're out, your brand is almost fluid, and every day you're either helping your brand, hurting your brand, and that's it. Your brand just doesn't stay still. So really being cognizant of that and using, my different networks to promote my brand.
Great. I like that advice a lot. That's really great advice. So let's go ahead and move forward a little bit and talk about something about the ABA that I think is a very foundational understanding that most law students and young lawyers should have, and that's the ABA groups. And the structure can be very confusing or overwhelming if you're unsure and never been involved in it before. So I'm going to take just a minute and kind of explain this. So if you need help in finding and exploring areas of the law, the best way to go about doing this is actually through the numerous ABA groups that any ABA member can join. There may or may not be cost associated with that, but you can check based on your status as either a law student member or a young lawyer member. But the ABA groups, from a sky level view, are divided into sections, divisions, and forums, and they're all providing opportunities for community and leadership within the profession, while also focusing on different areas of practice and career stages. So the sections, there are 22 specialty groups that focus on unique areas of law or business. And as I said at the beginning, one of those that I'm involved in is the section of intellectual property law. And then divisions, there are 6 groups that help legal professionals with their professional goals based on the career stage and or practice setting. So if you're a law student, you're automatically added to the law student division. If you're a young lawyer, you're automatically added to the young lawyer division. So you might already be familiar or involved in a division and may or may not realize it. The forums, those are 6 groups that explore and monitor new areas of law as they emerge on a national scale. Another one of those that I'm involved in is the Forum on Entertainment and Sports Industries. So go ahead and there's a link right there. You can explore more in depth by visiting americanbar.org/groups.html. So panelists, just an open question, or I guess Miguel, if you want to answer it first, which areas of the ABA have you found most beneficial based on your involvement?
I would say the law student division, just because, it's so curated to my current experience and in helping out, providing helpful information around networking, around, being a law student. And also the Legal Technology Resource Center. I don't know if that's necessarily a group, but they have a ton of helpful resources as well. And I'm really excited about the newly established ABA Center for Innovation and what that center hopes to provide in terms of taking, moving beyond the one-size-fits-all approach in terms of addressing some of the systemic problems in the legal profession. So I'm really excited around that center.
Wow, I'm going to actually send people your way then if they want to learn more about that, because that sounds really interesting, and I bet that you could easily point people in the right direction. So Irene, can you answer the question, which areas of the ABA have you found most beneficial based on your involvement?
I would actually just agree with all 3 of those that Miguel said. The law student division, just because I was a ABA ambassador for my student bar association, and they started offering free student memberships, where I think really helped. And with your free student membership, you can also join a lot of these groups and organizations for free. So I sort of just looked at which ones would touch on technology and privacy law, and joined all those, which is how I ended up in the Women in IP section. I've also competed in competitions that were hosted by the Law Student Division, so that was another way that I got involved with that. But the Law Technology Resource Center, which is heavily connected with the ABA Tech Show, which I met a lot of my network through there, and that has sort of ushered its way through to the Center of Innovation, which I'm also very excited about for all the reasons that Miguel stated.
Great. And Nicole, do you want to answer the question as well? Which areas of the ABA groups have you found most beneficial?
Sure. So I actually was not involved in the law student division, which is unfortunate. I should have been when I was in law school, but I am pretty involved with the young lawyers division, so YLD. I have been on some committee for about 2 years, and I love the YLD. It's such a great resource for for new and young lawyers. There are a lot of resources online that maybe a lot of new lawyers aren't aware of, but they have a program called Growing Lawyers, Growing Leaders. They have interviews, articles, checklists, just a whole lot of resources to help lawyers who are new and maybe feel lost or scared. So being on a committee has allowed me to help contribute towards building up this resource database online. So I've been able to contribute my own articles and podcasts, but also reach out to other young lawyers who have an itch to write something but just don't know where to publish it. So it's been great on both ends, contributing myself and also just meeting other young lawyers who want to share their thoughts and advice.
Awesome, yes, and so I'll just kind of add, through my involvement with the section of intellectual property law, it's really as simple as getting on these email lists and kind of finding out and being aware of these opportunities. And as I said earlier, Irene was on an email list, and it's just actively participating and keeping your eye out for opportunities to get involved. And I've actually been published, it'll be my second time to be published in ABA's Landslide magazine in this month when it comes out, and I got to write an article about YouTube law. So it's always kind of fun. You can explore different avenues and learn about new different areas of the law that you might not know about, especially as a law student, kind of get out of that classroom mindset and learn the practical applications of things. We actually have a Twitter question coming in from Genevieve. I think, Genevieve, you're a student at Columbia University, if I'm correct. I can't pull that up, but I think that's right. So Genevieve asks, what advice would you give pre-law students for getting involved in ABA groups? And the first, so panelists, I'll let you answer that in just a second, but non-attorney or law student members can actually be student associate members, and the annual dues for that type of membership is only $27, and you just have to be enrolled in a higher education study program. But panelists, do you have any thoughts on what a pre-law student might get out of being an ABA member?
Yeah, I think some of the most beneficial things I did as a pre-law student, or even as a 1L, was go on informational meetings with attorneys that are in my area. I made it a point to do at least one a week. And what an informational meeting is you go and you literally just ask them about their job and what they do day to day. And if you build a connection, maybe they'll let you come shadow them, and so that you can see what you're getting into. Because, you know, as a law student, your time is pretty limited. You only have 2 summers, and, you know, if you choose to, you can intern during the school year, but that's a limited amount of time for you to try out different areas of law or different types of legal work. So I think if you get a head start as a pre-law student, you can go into law school with a little bit more information about what you want to do. And I also want to shout out the Miss JD tag in your question, because I'm a Miss JD fellow, so shout out to Genevieve for that.
Perfect. So let's go ahead and move on now, and I want to talk about starting a blog. So Miguel, talk to us about legal blogs. I kind of consider you the guru when it comes to law student blogs. First, can you explain the blog that you started during law school? And then secondly, what are some resources you can recommend for law students looking to start a blog?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks. Never heard guru before, but I guess it is May the 4th. So may the 4th be with you. Yeah, I was put onto blogs by Kevin O'Keefe, the legend of all legal blogging. Um, we grew a relationship after meeting at a hackathon, and I kind of just cultivated that relationship since my 1L year. Came down, checked out the Lex blog offices. And then he had an idea one day of, starting this law blog network for law students, and I was thrilled to, be one of the first students to create one of these blogs. I think it's, blogging as a law student is super important. One, it helps you learn more about different issues or a particular area of law that you're interested in. For me, it's law, technology, access to justice issues, and blogging teaches me more about in terms of the research I have to do. Also, it gives you a voice. There's this assumption, that everyone else in this space that you're in knows all the information you know, but that's not always true. So kind of using the same criteria of having, authentic voice and sharing information can build a audience or, group of readers. It also, it's current. Unlike writing for a journal or law review, your blogs are very up to date. They're fresh. You have an active and wide landscape of potential readers as well. And I guess for resources and looking to start a blog, this will be definitely not a shameless plug, shameless, but Lex Blog. They have the Law Student Blog Network, which I have recently mentioned, and they can create blogs. Blogs for law students very simply, and they have a few articles, intro to legal blogging, as well as, there's just a ton of other materials out there, Medium, LinkedIn as well.
Excellent. Yeah, and so I'm actually going to do the same thing. So I just tweeted out a link to my two-part blog series, Intro to Legal Blogging, that also guides you through the process of creating a legal blog. So combine that with your Lex blog resources, and I think we're sending people on the right path. So I want to jump over to Nicole now. We have an incoming hologram, I guess, to go with the theme of the day. So can you kind of explore ways that law students and recent graduates can utilize video content in establishing their brand, and why is video so valuable today?
Sure. So video is actually going to become even more valuable as we go forward. It's becoming a consumer's choice of how to actually consume information. So a lot of people enjoy watching videos as opposed to reading articles. I think, obviously, I think blogging is super important, but if a young lawyer or a law student doesn't have the patience or doesn't want to write, and that's not something they enjoy doing, and they're not gifted at it, then they can pick up their phone and just flip on their camera and actually record a video blog instead, so a vlog. So if they just prefer talking about a recent case law that just came down or whatever it is that they would have written about had they started a blog, they can just do it in video form. And I don't know if you guys remember that scene from Legally Blonde where Elle records a video and sends it over for her Harvard law application. So
Yes,
I feel like
yes.
that shows you how powerful video is, because when someone can see your face, they're going to be able to connect with you and make a deeper, more personal connection with you because you're staring at them in their digital eyeballs. So it brings the words to life, in my opinion. So again, if you don't enjoy writing, you don't have to start a blog. You can start creating videos instead and convey your message that way.
I love that, and I want to ask you so much about like barriers to entry. Like, do you have to have professional video equipment? But that, again, I think that's a conversation for a whole nother day. But before we move on from this topic, here is a resource that I love, and I think that you put together, and I think it's really great. And it's 5 ways to use video. So let's just plug that real fast. And there's a link, a bit.ly shortened URL down there that people can type in and go and sign up and get this. I think it's about 20 pages. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that. And it's free. It's just a little guide explaining the
Yeah,
different videos you can create. So yeah, thank you for plugging that. Go ahead and grab it if you guys are
perfect.
interested.
Moving on to our final topic, controlling your own fate. You are in control of your own fate and your future legal career, even though it might not seem like it at the moment. So we've talked about a lot of digital ways of connecting and building a network. So let's not forget about in real life or IRL methods that you can utilize. So Irene, can you tell me how to utilize coffee or in-person meetings to expand your network?
So recently, actually, when I was at the Miss JD conference, I got a tip that was so profound. If you're meeting with someone who is really busy, offer to bring coffee to their office and say, hey, can I have 15 minutes of your time to talk about X, Y, and Z? And, people are rarely going to turn in an opportunity for someone to bring them coffee to their own office and talk to you for 15 minutes, so I always would ask to meet somewhere else or, during lunch or something like that. But I think that tip of bringing coffee to someone's office is really good because it just makes it the most convenient for them to meet with you. Another tip that I have with coffee or in-person meetings is having your elevator pitch down to, 20-second about what you're doing, who you are, and where you want to go. And being able to say it and say it in such a consistent manner so that whenever people hear it, they're able to repeat it without you being in the room is really important because, it's not what people say about you while you're in the room, it's what they say about you once you're out there. So being able to have a memorable elevator pitch that people can remember about you really helps solidify your brand and your network.
Yes, that's so true.
I
And I'm
do
going
with
to have, sorry, if I can just go ahead and cut you off, I'm sorry. I'm not sure if the
yeah,
webinar is going to cut off in 30 seconds, but I would like to at least just go ahead and quickly move forward and talk about the fact that we recommend forging your own path, finding internships and creating them yourself. And then also the other aspect of it is starting your own business, your law firm, hanging your own shingle. The ABA has abablueprint.com, which is a great resource. And so if we don't get cut off here, I would like to go ahead and just thank everybody for attending and everyone active and asking questions. And then also thank you to our panel. So it looks like it's not going to cut us off immediately. So thank you to everyone on our panel, Nicole, Irene, and Miguel. You have some great tips and experience to share. And then also thank you to the ABA staff that helped organize this event. And so since it's not cutting us off quite yet, let's try to go back a little bit. And Nicole, I think you also have a great story, if I'm remembering correctly, about a coffee meeting that turned into a job opportunity.
Yeah. So, and I'll try to make it quick, but when I first graduated, well, when I first passed the bar, I didn't have I had a job that fell through, so I was kind of jobless and I was looking around. I reached out to someone who I knew was a lawyer in a practice area I was interested in. So I reached out to him just wanting to meet up, kind of talk to him about that practice area, which was family law. We ended up meeting up, chatting for about 2 hours, and he ended up offering me a part-time job out of that. So it's so you're right. It is we do need to create our own opportunities, and sometimes it shows up in the form of just reaching out for a coffee meeting. So it worked for me.
Yes, and I'll second that and say during my 1L, I went to a brand new law school that was here in Nashville called Belmont College of Law, and we didn't have that extensive network that most established law schools have. So I was looking for something the summer of my 1L, and I emailed a podcast show called This Week in Law that I listened to and watched on YouTube before coming to law school. And so I emailed the host of that show and told them, hey, I need something to do over the summer of my 1L. Can I research and help you run the show, book guests? And so that was kind of a fun way to get exposure to a lot of current legal events, but also because it was a show where they had weekly guests, I learned how to book people and met a lot of practicing attorneys and legal professionals that were some heavy hitter names in the arena. So I love and I highly encourage law students to forge their own path. And Miguel, I want to pass it off to you to quickly talk about the ATJ Tech Fellows Program that is an organization that you started, correct?
Yes. I feel like there's, a huge need to provide 21st century training to lawyers around the use of technology, user-centered design, and meeting the unmet needs of folks who can't get legal services. So that was the main impetus for the program, is to train law students, around this and provide and give them actual practical experience to work with the different uses of technology. So law students participating in the program are 9 fellows. Will be working at various legal aid organizations around the country, where they'll be working on an actual project that's currently in development to increase or improve the law, improve legal service delivery, and make it more efficient to the clients they serve. So I'm really excited that I was able to get the support, a wide range of support from folks all around the country, and I'm happy to have to start this program this summer. I know Irene is really happy that three of our fellows are from Michigan State, so big shout out to Michigan State, and big shout out to Irene for sharing that information to her students on campus. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Now, Irene,
That's definitely an initiative that we agree on.
Irene, I know
Sorry,
that you and Miguel have also been active and involved in hackathons, specifically legal hackathons. So can you both kind of describe the doors or avenues that you've noticed participating in those types of events have opened to you as a result of your involvement?
Sure. So I've participated in 2 legal hackathons, one in Chicago and one in LA, which through some mutual friends is where I met Nicole for the first time. Before that, we were just, Twitter friends and Instagram friends. But the avenues that it's led, it's being able to produce something tangible or even just a beta version of an application at the end of a hackathon really shows the sponsors and whoever you're talking to about these hackathons that you can put in the work to bring a project from point A to point B. And I'm not a coder. I have very, very little knowledge of coding compared to, software engineer or a computer scientist. But I've developed enough knowledge where I can talk to computer programmers and talk to them about how to wireframe the app and what we want to do and where we need the app at a legal standpoint and what we plan to do with it. So for me, it's really opened up doors to be able to talk to employers about producing tangible outcomes as well as being able to work on multidisciplinary teams.
Excellent. Miguel, anything to add?
Yeah, I think everything, definitely I adopt everything that Irene just said. The legal hackathon was really my first introduction to technology. When I got to law school, and just that kind of working in a very agile manner, the collaboration aspect, getting abreast of the different technologies and how to use them. I'm not a coder per se either, but learning how to manage a team of developers and communicate with them is a very, I think, essential skill. And I met just a ton of people. I organized 3 hackathons and been a part of over 10 hackathons in total. And I think, they all have their, just different spins to them, different crowds, different problems that they're solving. It really teaches you how to problem solve and, build an actual tangible product, which is something that I think the legal profession can do more of, like getting something out of the door and being forced within a short amount of time, even if that thing sucks or is in beta stage, just getting something out of the door. And this is where you have the, continuous development, keep it moving. But to get that MVP out is very critical of these hackathons. And I think moving beyond the hackathons, the profession should adopt this model in terms of some of the measuring improvements and some of the things that we need to get over in terms of diversity and greater legal accessibility.
Wonderful. It sounds like hackathons are the place the events to go to. So I think we can all definitely recommend. All of the panelists have been involved in a hackathon at least once. So I think we can all comfortably say we highly recommend law students and young lawyers get involved at their next local hackathon. Nicole, I kind of breezed by this forging your own path slide, but I want to revisit that since we haven't been cut off yet. I want to revisit starting your own firm or your own business. And I mentioned abablueprint.com as a way to go in terms of starting your own law firm, but you have started your own business. So can you kind of describe what it's been like and kind of walk us through what it's been like starting your own business? And then what are some resources you would recommend to others thinking about doing the same thing, whether it's a law firm or a legal services industry business?
Sure, and actually I did start my own law firm as well 2 years ago, but then that's been replaced by the new business. So I have a little bit of experience with both actual law firms and then business.
Perfect.
So I think if any of the listeners are interested or have been thinking that maybe they want to go solo eventually or right after passing the bar, there are definitely a lot of resources out there. We live in a very exciting time where we can get access to all this stuff for free. So I think my first piece of advice is try to take advantage of all the free resources on YouTube. Just Google resources. Solo Practice University was one that I turned to when I was opening my practice. But I also consumed a lot of podcasts. So there's a podcast for pretty much any subject that you're interested in. So look those up and start listening and learning. But I think before you even open any firm or business or anything, really think about why you're doing it. So why are you even wanting to open your own practice? Why do you not want to work for a firm or work for a company? And then really think about whether you've got what it takes. So do you have the drive? Are you willing to put in all the work and hard time and effort? Because it is going to take a lot of it. And are you willing to forego making as much money as you want in the short term for a long-term gain? So also think about that. Are you willing to take a hit basically with your income for a little while, along with a lot of other considerations? But just do as much research as you can and speak to people in those areas. So if you're opening a practice and you want to focus on privacy law, I guess, or anything really, just reach out to someone who's already doing it and talk to them and get as much information, and hopefully they give you actual genuine answers, right? And they tell you what it's really like. But research online, speak to people. Those are probably the two biggest pieces of advice if you're thinking about starting a business, opening a law practice.
Perfect. And Irene, I know I cut you off since we're about to wrap up. Before we wrap up, I want to hear that last tip that you have related to coffee meetings. And I think you tweeted it out too, so let's just go ahead and get it on the record here. What is that last tip for coffee meetings?
On the record. Yes, so my last tip of coffee meetings is before you leave, be sure to ask the person you're meeting with to introduce you to one or two more people so that you can continue to build out your network, and be sure to follow up with everyone that you meet with thank yous, and even a handwritten note can go a long way.
Perfect. Well, I don't think we have any other questions that have come in, but on behalf of the ABA, I'm Franklin Graves, and thank you again to all of our panelists, and thank you for everybody listening or watching on demand at a later time. If you have any remaining questions or comments, you are welcome to reach out to any of us on this panel using the contact information provided on the screen right here and now. Also, if you want to, I think this will be put on YouTube as well. So in the comments below, click the like button first of all and subscribe. But then also in the comments below, we'll do a dialogue. I know Nicole and I are both active, and maybe we can get Irene and Miguel to also jump on over to the YouTube bandwagon. We can have more conversation in the comments below. So thank you again, and that concludes this presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.